Golden child got $200,000 wedding, I got a gift card. 5 years later he's bankrupt and calling me for help. Posted to r/true off my chest. I've been lurking on Reddit for years, but I never thought I'd be the one posting. My wife finally convinced me that writing this out might be therapeutic, and honestly, I need to know if I'm the monster my parents think I am. This is long. I'm sorry. 32 years of context doesn't fit in a tweet. Let me start with the moment everything crystallized for me, the moment I stopped making excuses for my family. It was June 15, 2019. My wedding day. Well, technically the day after, because my wife and I were opening the small pile of cards and gifts we'd received. We got married at the courthouse with a reception at a local restaurant. Nothing fancy, about 40 people, paid for entirely by us. We'd been saving for 2 years, and we were proud of what we'd put together. It was intimate. It was us. My wife held up an envelope with my parents' names on it. "Ready for the big reveal," she joked, wiggling her eyebrows. We'd made a game of guessing amounts. Her aunt had surprised us with $500. My college roommate had given us a beautiful set of knives we still use. I took the envelope. It was thin. Inside was a card, generic, the kind you buy in a pack of 12 from the grocery store. "Congratulations on your special day," in gold script. And inside, written in my mother's handwriting, "Wishing you a lifetime of happiness. Love, Mom and Dad." Tucked into the card was a gift card. $50. To Applebee's. My wife laughed, waiting for me to reveal the check that must be underneath. When I showed her the gift card, her face went through about 5 different emotions in 3 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, anger, and finally, that careful neutrality she adopts when she doesn't want to make things worse. "Maybe there's more coming," she offered. "Like, a check in the mail? A savings bond?" I knew there wasn't. I knew, with a certainty that settled into my chest like a stone, that this was it. This was what my wedding was worth to my parents. I used to tell myself their love wasn't finite. That they loved us equally, just differently. I stopped believing that at my own wedding, holding a gift card to a chain restaurant while remembering every detail of my brother's wedding 2 years earlier. The contrast, because you need to understand. My brother got married in September 2017. I was his best man, though calling me best anything in relation to my brother felt like a stretch even then. The wedding was at an estate vineyard 2 hours outside the city, the kind of place that has a waiting list and requires a minimum spend that would make your eyes water. I know the exact number because my mother told everyone who would listen. $200,000. My parents paid for everything. The venue, the catering, filet mignon or lobster, take your pick. The open bar with top-shelf everything. The designer dress my sister-in-law wore, which had been custom altered 3 times to achieve perfection. The live band that flew in from Nashville. The photographer who'd shot actual celebrity weddings. The 3-day weekend of festivities that included a welcome dinner, a morning after brunch, and spa packages for the bridal party. My mother cried during her speech about how blessed they were to have such a wonderful son, how they'd never seen anyone work so hard or deserve so much happiness. I stood next to my brother at the altar and smiled until my face ached. I gave a toast that took me 2 weeks to write. I danced with my mother to a song she'd chosen. And I told myself that this was just how it was. That my brother needed this. That my parents loved us both. I was lying to myself, and I think part of me knew it even then. The family dynamic. Here's what you need to understand. My brother is adopted. My parents tried to have children for 8 years. They went through every treatment available in the early 80s, spent their savings, and finally made the decision to adopt. They brought my brother home when he was 3 weeks old. He was their miracle, their answered prayer, the child they thought they'd never have. And then, 3 years later, I happened. A miracle baby, they called me. My mother had been told she'd never conceive naturally, and yet there I was, proof that the impossible was possible. You'd think that would make me special. The surprise blessing. The against all odds child. You'd be wrong. From my earliest memories, I understood that my brother was the priority. Not in a malicious way. My parents weren't monsters. They were terrified. Terrified that my brother would feel less than because he was adopted. Terrified that having a biological child would somehow diminish their love for him. Terrified that the world would treat him differently, and so they needed to prove every single day that he was just as wanted, just as loved, just as central to our family as I was. Except in proving it to him, they stopped proving it to me. My brother went to private school, a prestigious academy with small class sizes and impressive college placement rates. My parents said it was because he struggled with learning differences and needed more support. When I asked to go too, They said they couldn't afford both tuitions. I went to public school. It was fine. I told myself it was fine. My brother got a new car for his 16th birthday. A BMW, used, but still a BMW. When I turned 18, I got his hand-me-down, the same car with 80,000 miles and a transmission that made ominous sounds on cold mornings. "We can't keep buying cars," my father said, reasonably. I understood. Of course I understood. My brother's college was fully paid, tuition, room and board, spending money. He graduated with zero debt and a job waiting for him at our uncle's company. When I got into a better school, a top engineering program, the dream I'd worked toward for years, my parents sat me down and explained that they'd used their college savings on my brother, and could I maybe consider somewhere more affordable. I took out loans. Over $80,000 in loans. I'm still paying them off. Part of me felt guilty when he went bankrupt. Then I remembered I was still paying student loans for a degree he got for free. The pattern. I could fill pages with examples, but here's what you need to understand. It wasn't any one thing. It was the accumulation. The steady, constant, quiet message that I was secondary. Not unloved. I genuinely don't think my parents actively disliked me. I was just less urgent. Less important to reassure. Less necessary to prioritize. My brother had anxiety. He got therapy and medication, and everyone walked on eggshells around his triggers. I had anxiety too, but I was supposed to be the strong one. I handled things. That was my role. My brother struggled at work. My parents called in favors, funded his business ventures, covered his rent during his transitions. I graduated at the top of my engineering program, got a job at a good company, and never once asked for help, partly out of pride, partly because I knew asking would be pointless. My brother's relationships were dramatic, chaotic, and consuming. When they failed, the entire family mobilized to support him. When my college girlfriend and I broke up, my mother didn't even notice until 3 months later, when she asked why that nice girl hadn't been at Thanksgiving. I learned not to need things, not to ask, not to expect. And then came the wedding. Update 1. The withdrawal. The $50 wasn't the insult. The Applebee's was. They couldn't even pretend to try. If they'd given me a heartfelt card with nothing inside, I could have told myself they were struggling financially. If they'd given me a modest check and an apology, I could have understood. But the Applebee's gift card told me exactly what my wedding, what I, was worth to them. Less than a nice dinner out. Less than the effort of going to an actual store and buying an actual gift. Less than pretending to care. I didn't explode. That's not who I am. Maybe it should have been. Maybe a dramatic confrontation would have cleared the air years ago. Instead, I did what I'd always done. I went quiet. I stopped calling. Stopped visiting. Stopped being the one to reach out, to maintain, to work. For the first time in my life, I let the silence grow. My parents didn't notice for 4 months. My mother finally texted me in October, not to check in, but to tell me about my brother's upcoming business launch. "Dad and I are so proud of him. Thought you might want to buy a package to support him." I left the text unanswered for 3 days. Then I wrote back, "Busy with work. Congrats to him." That was the extent of our communication until Christmas, which I skipped, claiming work obligations. In reality, my wife and I flew to her family's house for the holidays. Her parents welcomed me like a son, asked about my job, remembered my hobbies, gave me a gift they'd clearly thought about. I cried in the bathroom and didn't tell anyone. The next year was more of the same. I became a ghost at the edges of my family, present for unavoidable occasions, silent otherwise. My brother never seemed to notice my absence, too absorbed in his newest venture. My parents never called to ask if something was wrong. They called only when they needed something or wanted to share my brother's latest triumph. I started therapy around this time. My wife had been suggesting it for years, but I'd always resisted. I was fine, I was handling things, I wasn't the kind of person who needed help. But something about the gift card, about holding physical proof of my irrelevance, broke something loose in me. I needed to talk about it with someone who wasn't invested in the outcome. My therapist says I'm allowed to have boundaries. It still feels like I'm being cruel. Update 2. 5 years later. Time has a way of revealing things. By 2024, I was doing well. Really well. I'd moved from my initial software engineering job to a series of increasingly senior positions, eventually landing at a tech company as a principal engineer. My wife had gone back to school for her master's and was now working her dream job in educational psychology. We'd bought a modest house in a nice neighborhood, paid off our cars, started saving seriously for the future. We weren't rich, but we were stable. comfortable, happy. My brother's trajectory was different. The business my parents had been so proud of, the one they'd invested in, promoted, told everyone about, failed within 18 months. It turns out that a good idea and parental funding don't compensate for poor management, high overhead, and a complete unwillingness to take advice. My brother blamed the market, blamed his partners, blamed everyone except himself. His wife left him the following year. I'd never gotten close to her. She always seemed to view me with faint confusion, like she couldn't quite figure out why I existed, but I understood her decision. My brother had blown through their savings on his failed venture, had started drinking heavily, had become convinced that the world was conspiring against him. She took their daughter and moved back to her parents' house. The bankruptcy followed like a final punctuation mark. I heard about it through my mother, who called me for the first time in months, sounding tired and scared. "Your brother's in trouble," she said. "He's really struggling. We've done what we can, but—" What she didn't say, but what I pieced together over subsequent conversations, was this: they'd given him everything. The $200,000 wedding had been just the beginning. They'd funded his business, covered his mortgage when times were tough, paid his legal fees during the divorce. They'd sold their vacation property. They'd drained their retirement accounts. They'd given until there was nothing left to give. And now they were broke too. Update 3. We're family. My brother showed up at my house on a Sunday afternoon in March. No call ahead, no warning, just the doorbell ringing and his face on my doorstep when I opened it. He looked terrible. Older than his 35 years, gaunt, wearing clothes that had seen better days. I recognized the jacket. It was the same one he'd worn to his rehearsal dinner, now faded and ill-fitting. "Can I come in?" he asked. I should have said no. Every therapy session, every hard-won boundary, every year of distance screamed at me to say no. But I stepped aside and let him in, because I'm still me, and I still don't know how to stop trying. He sat on my couch and looked around at my living room, the comfortable furniture, the artwork my wife had chosen, the evidence of a life well lived. I saw something flicker across his face. Resentment, maybe. Or just exhaustion. "I need help," he said. "I know we haven't been close, but I'm really struggling right now, and I thought maybe you could help." "Help how?" "Financially. Just a loan to get me back on my feet. I've got some ideas, some opportunities, I just need a little capital to—" "How much?" He named a figure that made me laugh. Not a cruel laugh, a surprised one. The kind you make when someone asks you to do something so absurd you can't quite believe they're serious. "I don't have that kind of money to loan," I said, which was true. I also wouldn't have loaned it if I did, but I didn't say that part. "But you could get it. You've got a good job, right? And this house, and—" "I've got a mortgage, car payments, and student loans I'm still paying off," I said. "You know, the loans I took out while you went to school for free." He had the grace to look uncomfortable. "That was Mom and Dad's decision, not mine. And it's my decision now." He leaned forward, and I saw something desperate in his eyes. "Come on, man. We're family. We're brothers. I know things have been weird, but when it comes down to it, family's supposed to be there for each other. That's what it means." Something in me snapped. Not explosively. I'm not built for explosions. But the quiet, clean snap of something breaking that had been strained too long. "Family," I repeated. "You want to talk about family?" "Yes. I know I wasn't the best brother, but—" "You got $200,000. I got a gift card." He blinked. "What?" "For your wedding. Mom and Dad spent $200,000. They paid for everything. The venue, the catering, the designer dress, all of it. And for my wedding—" I laughed again, but there was nothing funny about it. "They gave me a $50 gift card to Applebee's. Didn't even come to the registry. Didn't even get a real card. $50 to a chain restaurant, that's what my wedding was worth." "That's not— I didn't know about—" "No. You didn't know. Because you never asked. Because you never noticed. Because for 32 years, everything has been about you. Your needs. Your struggles. Your special circumstances. And I was supposed to understand. I was supposed to be the strong one, the self-sufficient one, the one who doesn't need anything from anyone." I stood up, and he flinched like I might hit him. I wouldn't. But the flinch told me he didn't know that. "You want to talk about family? Fine. Here's what family meant in our house. You got private school while I got public. You got a new car while I got your hand-me-downs. You got college paid while I took out loans I'm still paying. You got funded business ventures while I worked my way up from nothing. And you got $200,000 for a wedding that ended in divorce, while I got a gift card to Applebee's for a marriage that's the best thing that ever happened to me." My brother was silent. I couldn't tell if he was shocked by the information or shocked that I was finally saying it. "I'm not going to give you money," I said. "I'm not going to loan you money. I'm not going to help you get back on your feet so you can fall down again. Figure it out. You've had 35 years of training wheels. Time to learn to balance." He left without saying goodbye. I sat on my couch for an hour afterward, shaking, waiting for the guilt to consume me. It didn't come. For the first time in my life, I'd said what I actually felt, and the world hadn't ended. The guilt I expected was replaced by something else, something that felt almost like relief. Update 4. The parents. The phone call came 3 days later. My mother, of course. My father never calls. He processes things through her, always has. "Your brother told us what happened," she said. Her voice was stiff, hurt, accusatory. "I can't believe you would treat him that way when he's at his lowest." "Did he tell you what I said?" "He said you compared gifts. Wedding gifts, of all things. He said you were keeping score. Throwing numbers around like money is the only thing that matters." I closed my eyes. "Did he tell you the numbers?" Silence. "Mom, what did you spend on his wedding?" "That's not. We did what we could." "How much?" "Your brother had different needs. He was getting married to a wonderful girl from a good family, and the wedding reflected." "How much?" "Around $200,000. She said it fast, like that would make it less real. "But that's not the point. The point is that you have more than enough, and your brother has nothing, and instead of helping family, you're choosing to be cruel." "What did you give me for my wedding?" Another silence. Longer this time. "Mom, I don't remember exactly, but I'm sure. $50. A gift card. To Applebee's." I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. "That can't be right." "It is. I still have it. Never used it. I should have thrown it away, but some part of me wanted to keep it. Evidence, I guess. Proof that I wasn't imagining things. There must have been more. We would never." "You did. And you know what? It's not even about the money. If you'd given me nothing and told me you loved me, that you were proud of me, that my wedding mattered to you, I would have understood. We didn't have an expensive wedding. We didn't ask for anything but a gift card to Applebee's." My voice cracked, and I hated it. "You couldn't even pretend to try." My mother started crying. I used to fold immediately when she cried, apologize for whatever I'd done, comfort her, make things easier. This time I waited. "We never meant to make you feel less loved," she finally said. "Your brother had such a hard time, and we were so worried about him feeling rejected, about him feeling like he didn't belong." "I know. I've always known. And I understood. I really did. I spent my whole childhood understanding. I spent my whole adulthood understanding. But somewhere in all that understanding, you forgot that I was there too. That I also needed things. That I also deserved to feel valued." I took a breath. "And now you're calling me because my brother is broke and needs help, and you think I should give it because, family. But here's the thing. You can't give someone nothing for 30 years and then expect them to give everything when it's convenient." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that you spent $200,000 you couldn't afford on a wedding that ended in divorce. I'm saying you drained your retirement to fund business ventures that failed. I'm saying you gave and gave and gave to one son until there was nothing left, and then you're surprised that the other son, the one you gave nothing to, isn't rushing to fill the gap. We gave you love. Did you? Or did you give me obligation? Because love isn't just leftover attention after you've used all the best attention on someone else. Love isn't hand-me-downs and afterthoughts and gift cards to Applebee's." The conversation ended badly. My mother accused me of being bitter and jealous. I told her she was probably right, but that didn't make me wrong. We hung up without resolving anything, and I didn't hear from her for 2 months. Update 5. The present day. It's been 8 months since that conversation. Things have shifted. My brother is still struggling, though he's found a job, entry-level, at a company that doesn't know his history of failed ventures. He's living in a small apartment, seeing his daughter on weekends, apparently going to therapy. My mother provides these updates in the occasional text, as though I'd asked for them. I haven't. My parents have had to make adjustments. My father took a part-time job to supplement their dwindled savings. They sold the house I grew up in and moved to a smaller place in a less expensive town. My mother calls these developments humbling, in a tone that suggests she'd rather not discuss them. And me? I'm successful. I'm happy. My wife and I are talking about starting a family. My career is in a good place. By any objective measure, I've won. So why do I feel so empty about it? They want a relationship now. Now that he's empty and I'm full. I wonder if they see the irony. My mother has started reaching out more, not to request money, but to connect. She sends photos of her new garden. She asks about my work. She remembered my birthday for the first time in years. My father even called once, a halting conversation about nothing in particular that felt like it might have been an attempt at reconciliation. Part of me wants to believe it's genuine. Part of me thinks they're just hedging their bets. The golden child is tarnished now, so maybe it's time to invest in the other one. I hate that I think that way. My therapist says skepticism is a reasonable response to years of disappointment. It still feels like I'm being cynical. Here's the thing nobody tells you about getting the ending you thought you wanted. It doesn't feel the way you imagined. I spent years angry, years hurt, years constructing elaborate fantasies where my family would finally see what they'd done and feel terrible about it. And now that version of events has essentially come to pass. My brother failed, my parents realized they'd put all their eggs in one basket, and I'm standing here with the life I built on my own, vindicated. But I don't feel triumphant. I feel tired. I feel sad. I feel like I've lost something I never really had, which is somehow worse than losing something real. My wife thinks I should give my parents a chance. Not for them, she says. For you. So you know you tried. My therapist thinks I should set clear boundaries and communicate my needs before opening any doors. My brother hasn't reached out since that conversation in my living room. I don't know if he's embarrassed, angry, or just indifferent. It's possible he never thought about me much to begin with, and my absence is just a minor adjustment in his world. Last week, my mother sent me a letter. Handwritten, on actual stationery, which she hasn't done since I was in college. It was long, 4 pages, and it said a lot of things I'd needed to hear for years. That she was sorry. That she'd been so focused on protecting one son that she'd failed to see the other. That she didn't expect forgiveness but wanted me to know she understood now, finally, what she'd done wrong. The letter also included a check. For $50,000. A note explained that they'd sold some things, called in some old investments, wanted to make up for the wedding gift in the only way they could think of. I haven't cashed it. I'm not sure I will. The money feels like a trap, like if I take it, I'm agreeing that the last 32 years can be balanced out in dollars. They can't. No amount of money can buy back a childhood of feeling invisible. No check can substitute for the words I needed to hear when I was 12, 16, 22. But the letter. The letter I might keep. Conclusion. I'm posting this because I genuinely don't know what to do next. Part of me wants to accept my parents' overtures, to try for the relationship I never had, to believe that people can change and awareness can lead to healing. Part of me thinks it's too late, that they're only reaching out because they need me now, and if my brother somehow recovered and became successful again, I'd go right back to being the afterthought. Part of me wants to give my brother another chance too. He's my brother. We shared a childhood, even if we experienced it differently. But every time I consider it, I remember the $200,000 wedding, the handshake at my courthouse ceremony, the years of being invisible in my own family. My therapist says healing isn't linear. My wife says she'll support whatever I decide. My parents say they want to try again. And I'm here, holding a $50,000 check and a handwritten apology, wondering if it's possible to rebuild something that was never really built in the first place. I didn't go no contact. I didn't scream or fight or make dramatic ultimatums. I just stepped back. Stopped trying so hard. Let the natural consequences play out. And now I'm successful, and they're struggling, and everyone wants to pretend the last 30 years can be erased with a check and some belated acknowledgement. Maybe it can. Maybe that's what forgiveness is, choosing to move forward even when the past can't be fixed. Or maybe some gaps are too wide to bridge, and the kindest thing I can do for myself is accept that and move on. I guess I'm asking, if you were me, what would you do? Edit. Thank you for all the responses. I'm reading every one, even if I can't reply to all of them. A lot of you have shared similar experiences, and it helps to know I'm not alone in this. For those asking, yes, my wife knows about this post. She's actually sitting next to me, reading the comments with me, occasionally interjecting with her own thoughts. She says to tell you all that she's very proud of me for finally talking about this, even if it's to internet strangers. I haven't decided what to do yet. But I've decided to take my time deciding, which feels like progress. The $50 gift card is still in a drawer in my office. I should probably throw it away. But somehow, I think I'll keep it a little longer. Not as a wound to pick at, as a reminder of how far I've come, of what I built with no one's help, of the fact that my worth isn't determined by people who couldn't see it. That feels like enough for now. Here's what I learned from being the other son. You can understand why someone hurt you and still be hurt. Understanding isn't forgiveness. And forgiveness isn't forgetting. For 32 years, I told myself their love wasn't finite. That they loved us equally, just differently. That my brother needed more, so I should need less. I built my entire identity around not needing things, not asking, not expecting, not being disappointed when nothing came. The $50 gift card broke something in me. Not because of the amount. Because of the Applebee's. They couldn't even pretend to try. My parents weren't monsters. I need you to understand that. They were terrified people trying to protect a child they thought was fragile, and somewhere in that protection, they forgot they had another child who was also watching, also learning, also deciding what he was worth based on how they treated him. I learned I was worth hand-me-downs and public school and student loans. I learned I was worth leftover attention. I learned that being the strong one meant no one would ever check if I was okay. My brother is broke now. My parents are struggling. And I'm successful, stable, happy by any objective measure. The ending I spent years fantasizing about actually happened. It doesn't feel like I thought it would. I don't feel triumphant. I feel tired. I feel sad. I feel like I've lost something I never really had, which is somehow worse than losing something real. They want a relationship now. Now that he's empty and I'm full. My mother sent a 4-page letter and a $50,000 check, trying to buy back 32 years with paper and ink and numbers. The money feels like a trap. If I take it, am I agreeing that the past can be balanced out in dollars? It can't. No check substitutes for the words I needed to hear when I was 12, 16, 22. But the letter. The letter I might keep. My therapist says I'm allowed to have boundaries. My wife says she'll support whatever I decide. Part of me wants to try, to believe people can change, that awareness leads to healing. Part of me thinks they're only reaching out because they need me now, and if my brother somehow recovered, I'd go right back to being invisible. Here's what I know for certain. My worth isn't determined by people who couldn't see it. I built everything I have with no one's help. The gift card is still in my drawer, not as a wound to pick at, but as a reminder of how far I've come. Maybe forgiveness is choosing to move forward even when the past can't be fixed. Or maybe some gaps are too wide to bridge. I haven't decided yet. But I've decided to take my time deciding. That feels like enough for now.